Hi folks, this is the first in a series of videos about the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT. My name's Dave and I'm the developer of the system. For this video, we'll be creating a new character and talking about a bunch of important character sheet features as we go through the process. Later videos will cover topics like the monster and NPC sheet, item sheets of all kinds, and we may even show off some of the premium content compendia that are currently in development. For this video, I'll make some use of the compendia, but I will also talk about how to set up and play the game without those being available. I should note that you really do need to have a copy of the Hyperborea rules in order to use the system. You can find the books in PDF or physical format at the Northwind Adventures website and with other resellers. I'll put a link to the publisher in the doobly-doo below. Also, note that the system for Foundry VTT is based on the current 3rd edition rules. I'm pretty sure it would work just fine for 2nd edition and maybe even 1st edition Hyperborea, but since I don't have those rule sets, I have no way to test them out. So, the player's manual for Hyperborea outlines the steps of character creation in this order. Number 1, generate attributes. 2, choose a class. 3, develop a background. 4, purchase equipment. 5, determine starting spells. And 6, record other statistics. We will follow this general order, and as I mentioned, I'll cover the features of the character sheet as we go through the creation process. So to start, let's create a new blank character. So I'll just go here and we'll create an actor. I will call him Argyros of Atlantis. He's a character, create the actor. As you can see, the character sheet opens with the default 10 values for all the attributes, which we will replace by rolling the dice. And we're going to follow method 3 from the player's manual for attribute generation, which is roll 4d6 and discard the lowest die roll. Generate 6 scores using this method. Assign scores to attributes as desired. And the reason we're going to use this really is just to make sure that I get a set of scores that are usable for the character class that I want to create. And I'll just paste this in here and press enter, and we should get a whole lot of dice rolled, and there we go. So these are our stats to work with. 12, 15, 14, 9, 16, 17. Very workable for pretty much any character class. We obviously classify for a fighter class. I'll go ahead and select that here. He's already level 1, not worried about the XP at this point. Not going to worry about alignment yet. So we've got these numbers. Now I can just take and assign them here. So I will pause the video here and fill in these numbers really quick. Okay, so I've got my attributes assigned, but of course I still don't have any of the modifiers filled in. So now we can do that just by clicking this book icon. And of course first, we're going to get a warning that it's going to wipe and replace any values that we might already have put in those fields. I haven't put any in there yet, so I'm just going to click confirm, and there they are. Now I'm going to make a recommendation here, and that is that you should always start with the automatic assignments via this book button, just like I just did, since that will prevent you from making any typos or errors like that as you're trying to read from the book. Also, this way you can make any changes or customizations later. Just be sure that once you've made any customizations, you don't use the book again, or it will wipe out those changes that you made and you'll have to refigure those out. So for now though, we've got everything that it should be. Strength of 17 gives us these modifiers, Dex 15, and on down the line. So with the attributes filled in along with their modifiers, let's look at the lower part of the abilities tab. That's what we're on here at the class abilities section down here. So along with choosing a class, which you've already done, adding its abilities will finish step 2 in character creation. Step 1, of course, being the rolling of the attributes. So without the compendia, you can simply add new abilities with this add feature button right here. So I can just click this. You can see it created a new feature. At this point, I can click the pencil on paper icon to edit the item. It pops it open in a new little window here, and I can fill in whatever information I need to. Most of these fields are not required, depending on the type of feature that you're adding. Certain class abilities do in fact have dice rolls, especially with thief abilities, in which case you do need to fill in the check roll, which is the die type being roll. Could actually be a full formula. Usually though, it's just like a D6 or a D12. And then the target, that's your formula for success, or your number for success, I should say. So if you're trying to roll a 5 or less on a D12, you would put D12 in the check roll, 5 in the target. And of course, you can fill in the description with a rich text editor like this. This is my description. And then to save it, I just do Control S or Command S in a Macintosh. And then of course, this is my class ability, right? I just do that. I can give it a new icon. For the class abilities, I do use some standard ones in the compendia, but you can do whatever you want, of course. And then when you're done, you just click the close button, and there it is. And since I was going to do the D12. So let's just do the 5 out of D12 like that, right? So we're good there. I'll close this. And now you can see here it says check roll D12, target of 5. And when I mouse over it, I get a D20 that allows me to actually make an ability check just like that. I'm going to use this trash can to delete the item. And since I do have the compendia in development, I'm going to just take a few seconds to drag and drop all the class abilities for a fighter onto the character sheet. We'll pause the video here. We'll jump right back in a moment. Okay, now we have all the class abilities added. Standard features of the character sheet include, if the ability has a check roll, you can mouse over the icon and it changes to a D20, as with extraordinary strength right here. Click the ability name to pop down its description, just like that, in the character sheet itself. You can also click the eyeball icon off to the right, and that will cause it to appear in the chat, just like that, and there's the description. Same description as what's here in the character sheet, but this is visible, of course, to everyone. You can click the pencil on paper icon to edit the ability in a pop-up new window here like this. I will close that, and of course you can click the trash can to delete that ability, as I showed earlier. Finally, you can also drag and drop to resort these abilities in whatever order you want. As an example, I usually like to sort things with abilities that came with no level requirement attached, meaning they were applied to the class from level 1. But other items show up later and have a level requirement. So then I can resort like this just by dragging and dropping. There we go, 4, 6, 7, 9. So we know these last ones, they don't even become available to my character until he reaches levels 4, 6, 7, or 9. But the first 3 are all available to my character from level 1. And with that, we've got all of these class abilities added to my character, and we've completed step 2. So now we'll move to step 3, which is your character background. So here we're going to jump to the description tab right up here and fill in most or all of these fields along the top, and also the biography, however much or little you want to fill in. These fields are not used by the system for any game mechanical features. I'm actually just going to skip this step. This is all rich text here in this white section, and then these are standard boxes. Whatever you type in here is automatically saved. So you can fill in all these information here. We will then move on to step 4, which is purchasing equipment. I'll just go to the items tab for the moment. So in the player's manual, each class has an optional equipment set that can just be taken as a block. And then you'll have a few coins left over after that. This allows you to get up and running quickly without spending a ton of time choosing all of your gear. We'll use this optional rule to quickly add weapons, armor, and other gear to our sheet. And once again, I'm just going to pause here. I'm just going to grab the items from my compendium, and then I will unpause in just a moment. Okay, I have all of my weapons, armor, and equipment added to the sheet. We're going to take a couple of minutes to go over each item type, along with finishing the character creation, and that will bring us to the end of the video. We'll dig more deeply into how you use the items on your character sheet in a later video, but that is a bigger topic than we're ready to tackle right now. So let's start with the item tabs. We're already here. This is where all of your non-combat gear goes, with the exception or addition of ammunition, which also appears on the combat tab. First of all, containers are automatically sorted to the top of the list. So you've got an arrow quiver, a backpack, and a small pouch, and the large sack. Those are all container type items. So they sort to the very top of the list by default. They also sorted in alphabetical order, and I haven't dragged them around or anything, so they're just like that. Then you've got all of your non-container items, which is basically everything else aside from your weapons and armor. One thing you can do is drag a non-container item over a container, and that will actually move it into that container. So I'm going to actually take my arrows and I'm going to drag them into the quiver just by doing this. I drag it up, and now you can see the arrows are indented under the quiver. You can see their location is listed as arrow quiver. It just pulls in the name from its container, and it's that simple. Now to drag an item out of its container, you just drag it down somewhere over another non-container type item like that, and it pops it out. And my arrows are now right there. You can also resort your items just by dragging and dropping like that, just like, as long as you're not dragging it over a container, it will resort. So I'm going to take my arrows, I'm going to put them back in my quiver, and I can take things and I can go, well, let's see. My winter blanket is probably going to be rolled up separately, but my gauze bandages, they'll go in the backpack. Iron rations might just go in the backpack. Hemp might also be slung over a shoulder, but tinderbox probably, I'm going to throw that in my backpack. Tent is going to be separate. Torches in the backpack. Water and wineskin probably slung on my belt. And there we go. I've just sorted my items in the way I wanted them. Okay, so I've got my contained items in their containers. Items that are outside of a container, as I mentioned, they can be sorted just by dragging and dropping and things like that. You can't, unfortunately, do that inside a container. If you start dragging and dropping items here, like if I drag rations over Tinderbox, for example, it's going to pop it out of the container. So they will remain alphabetical within the container. Consumable items are the ones that have these little plus and minus toggle buttons to very quickly be able to increase and decrease the number of the particular item that you have on hand, or versus using them by decreasing them very quickly. Now, if you want to increase the actual maximum number carried, you just have to edit this. So if I say, well, really, I have a 20 arrow quiver, we've got just like that. I enter the 20, I close that. Now you can see I've got 12 out of 20. Now I could also just change this to a 20 right off the bat and say, okay, I've got a full quiver. And then as I use arrows, I can decrease them like that. This can also be done on the combat tab. I'll show you that in a bit. But you've got your gauze bandages. Maybe you actually carry 2 sets of these. So you're going to change these to 2. Oops, there we go. And now when I use one, just like that, or I accidentally click it, oops, bring it back up to 2 where it belongs. Iron rations, all of that. So very simple with consumable items. So this is all of our items. Now looking at the encumbrance section down in the lower left corner here, this calculates your character's weight carried based only on the weapons, armor, and equipment that are listed above here, but the weapons and armor on the combat tab. It doesn't include the weight of coins carried in the money column here, nor does it include the weight of any treasure in this free-form text box for treasure, just simply because those are plain text fields, and it just doesn't do that. If you wanted to calculate those weights, you're better off just adding a custom item here with add item, putting the description of that in there, and just calculating the weight as a single number. That's the best way to do that if you really want to get detailed about this. But the reality is, this number is designed to put you in the ballpark for what your character is carrying without being too detailed or too nitpicky. Okay, from here, we're going to go to the combat tab. And we'll go ahead and start with the weapons and armor, since they're very similar to the equipment list we were just looking at. Once again, you've got your items. You can drag and drop and resort in whatever order you want. So I can put bow at the top, for example, and I can put broadsword one-handed and broadsword two-handed in that order. I've got my studded armor and my shield. There's no containers here, of course, so just dragging and dropping, all that does is resort things. Ammunition is displayed here, same as on the items tab, and it does allow you to increment and decrement your quantity carried. And it's the same number whether you're on the items tab or the combat tab. It's all one calculation. That's all this gives you, but it allows you to maintain your inventory of arrows right in combat. As you fire an arrow, hit the minus button, and that way you can track it very easily. And then after battle, you can re-increment this by however many arrows you manage to recover at the end of that fight. Weapons and armor can also be equipped with this little t-shirt button over here. You can see the shield is already equipped, and I can equip the studded armor, and you can do the same thing with weapons. So one thing to note is that for weapons, there's actually no mechanical effect on the system or on the sheet when you equip or unequip that weapon, but you can use it as a friendly reminder of actually what you're currently holding in your hand and prepared to use in combat. Armor, however, is different, because by equipping or unequipping it, it does affect your armor class, shown up here in the upper right quadrant. Armor class 3 with studded armor, large shield, and my dexterity bonus. Now if I unequip the shield, you'll see that 3 change to a 5. For a large shield, it's a +2 bonus on your AC. So I can re-equip that. By the way, equipping armor also does change your damage resistance if you have any. My studded leather armor doesn't give me any DR, as you can see in this column here. But if I had chainmail with a DR of 1, for example, or a DR of 2, or whatever it happens to be, that would also be affected up here. And my unarmored armor class is simply no armor, no shield, only my dex modifier. That's all that is. So that doesn't really change unless my dex changes. But I can, like I said, I can equip and unequip my shield and armor, and that's changing my armor class up and down as necessary. So let's finish our character by reviewing these upper sections, the fighting skills and the combat stats. These are part 6 in character creation, which is the final step. So under fighting skills, we fill in our character's fighting ability, which for a first level fighter is 1. His unskilled weapon penalty, which actually fighters are skilled with all weapons, so there is no penalty. A lot of character classes have a -2 that goes in here. We can also fill in any class-based favored weapons, but with a fighter, it's any. They automatically are proficient with all weapons. For my fighter, what I can do is I can add his first weapon mastery, which is one of his class abilities. So what I can say is mastery and broadsword. And that just makes a note, but we can also change that. Since I took weapon mastery and broadsword, what I can do is I can edit the weapon. Oops, click the edit, and you see weapon mastery. One sword is weapon mastery. 2 cross swords is grand mastery, which only fighters have, but they don't get that till 7th level, I think it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and check that for mastery. That does have a mechanical effect, so you do want to remember to do it, because that gives the fighter the bonuses on attack and damage. So we've got, the basics of our fighting abilities. Now under combat stats, we set up his hit dice first. Now for a fighter, that's actually a D10. So we'll set that to D10, and then we can actually roll hit points just by clicking this hit die. And you can see it's going to add my Constitution modifier, and I'll just do that roll. We'll see what we get here for hit points. 9, very nice. +1 for the Constitution, so he actually starts out with 10 hit points. Now, interestingly enough, 10 was the default number that just gets stuck in the character sheet. So I don't need to enter anything, but normally, of course, you would change this to be what you actually rolled for your first level character. So we've got that filled in. We've got the Constitution modifier included in there, as I pointed out. Armor class we talked about is automatically calculated. However, movement speed is not. Now, for studded armor, he does still have a move of 40, so that's fine. That's the base move for an unarmored or lightly armored character. But if we had chainmail or something else, you might see a 30 in this move, or even a 20 for heavy armor, and then you would need to update that up here. The reason I don't do that automatically is simply because there's enough exceptions to the rules that we stick with keeping it manual. Let's see, we've got that then. Finally, we have to fill in the saving throws. Okay, so we've got the saving throws filled in. First level fighter is base 16 across the board, and then they do get a +2 on their death and a +2 on their transformation saving throws. So we change those to 14s. And now you're prepared to roll that anytime from any one of these. If you have to roll that, you just click the die. Again, we'll talk more in depth about that kind of stuff in a later video. But this completes the character creation for a fighter. We covered all 6 steps in the creation process, where to find the different kinds of information on the character sheet, and a few features that the sheet provides, like automatic attribute modifier calculations, armor class calculations, things like that. There will be much more to come in later videos as we roll up additional classes. We'll dig deeper into some special class abilities like thief skills and spell casting. And of course, we need to cover combat in some depth as well. So be sure to check back soon to learn more about the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT.